All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome back to another segment of News You Can Use. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Mya Henry, and I'm back with another segment of News You Can Use. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, and I'm happy to be here with you guys today, sharing the latest updates and insights that can truly make a difference in your life and in your business as well. And as usual, for today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the most relevant news, trends, topics, and practical tips. That way, you guys can use them to stay ahead of the game. So, getting straight into today's segment, just prepare yourselves for an informative session that will empower you to have an edge as you are building your business. So, let's get straight into the first thing that I want to share with you guys. So, how average New Yorkers are being rocked by inflation, and they're even saying how they can't even afford proper food. So, New Yorkers are still feeling the pinch, and that's all thanks to inflation. And as experts revealed, Americans are forking over $709 more per month on common goods than they did just 2 years ago. And some are scrimping by shopping only when sales come around, while others, like Yvonne, say that they have been forced to eat less healthy to contend with rising food costs. And she says that everything is rising. And Yvonne Lindsay is also 67 years old. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys how other New Yorkers are feeling about having to tighten their purse strings. So the first story I'm going to share with you guys is about Adam and Fran Cardone, who magician Adam Cardone is saying how he and his mother have been forced to hunt for sales in order to stock their pantry and fridge, but that stores where they live in their neighborhood never have any discounts. So they have to look for sales. And he said this outside of a stop and shop in Rockaway Park, Queens. He says that he lives closer to the projects and nothing over there is ever on sale. And he just wants to know why. Why are things never on sale? But over here in Rockaway Park, they are on sale. So he says how they have noticed how their bills have almost doubled, and it's doubled and everything has shrunk. All the products are smaller and they're cutting it down. For example, if it was 12 cookies, it's now 4. Cardone, who is 49, says that it wasn't just grocery prices that were gouging his wallet, but fundamental things like going to the movies too. He says how even in the old days, the poor people thought that the movies were cheap. It used to be the cheap thing to do. And he's asking, what is the cause of it? Some of the inflated prices just don't add up to him, but he can't really tell. Where on the other hand, his 76-year-old mother, Fran, estimated that her bills had more than doubled and that markets were skimping on what they sold. She says that her bill used to be $100 to $110, and today it was $225 for the same amount of food. And the boxes are empty. If people have a lot of kids, you can't afford to come here, she says. The cashiers will tell you everyone that's coming out has something to say about their bill. Every week, it's more than it was last week. Another story is of Maya Rodriguez, who at the Upper West Side of Whole Foods, she is a 39-year-old fashion business owner. She says how she's been clocking inflation by watching the price of tomato sauce creep up. She says how it was like $7 and usually it's like $5. And the chicken breasts are really overpriced for just 3 stacks of chicken. She also says that she lives in the Bronx, so she feels like it also depends on where you live. Rodriguez said that feeding her family quality food was more important to her and that she was holding out against making dietary sacrifices for as long as she could. She says how we like the high quality and how it's important to us. And moving on, Carol Sanders, who is now retired and on a fixed income. Sanders worked in a supermarket for 29 years and said that prices today have left her foregoing certain foods altogether at the expenses of her health. She says that she doesn't really eat that much meat and she stopped because she simply can't afford it. She is 75 and she says, I'm not getting good nutrition and I need to get better nutrition than I have because I have a bad kidney. A dozen of eggs is at least $5. They used to be $3.99. Meat is going up. She also says, and I quote, I'm not eating the proper food I should be eating because basically I can't afford the proper food that I should be eating. So that was a little bit about Carol Sanders. And next is Chris Geist, who's currently unemployed because of all the crap that's going on. Chris Geist was shopping at a Key Food on the Upper West Side with his two rabbits, who he named them Margaret and Patty, in a duffel bag. And he says how he got them from a lady in New Jersey and he names them all kinds of things. He says that if they monkey around, then they're monkeys, right? So Chris, he's saying how the cost of properly feeding his beloved pets is rising, explaining that he'd recently been forced to buy cilantro because the price of the bunny favorite romaine was too high for his budget. He says certain foods they can eat. Organic food products like romaine lettuce have gone up. It was $1.99. Now it's $3.59 for a head of romaine lettuce, said Chris Geist, who is 50 years old. He emphasizes that they eat better than he does and he's splurging with the chicken. Otherwise, he's a salad guy too. Guy said that the cost of pelleted rabbit food at Petco has risen over the last 2 years as well, but he has no plans of letting inflation get in the way of his pet's health and nutrition. He also said that he'd rob and steal, noting that he would only do so within reason and for his rabbits. Another story is Lucille, who is 72, who preferred not to share her last name. She said that while she thinks food has always been expensive, she felt her cash was not going nearly as far as it once did. It's always been expensive, and for me, it also depends on the store and the convenience, says the 72-year-old. It feels like a $100 bill is now a $20 bill. So I just shared with you guys a few stories, and given everything that I've said, people are voicing their concerns on the rise of their everyday or weekly or even monthly products. And I shared with you guys a few stories where people are saying that they had to change their diet just so that they can be able to buy products that fit in their budget. I also shared with you guys where people said how they really didn't want to have to change their diet because of inflation, because their health is important to them. People are making sacrifices just so that they can be able to afford things more comfortably. And I even shared a story with you guys how a pet owner was having a hard time keeping up with feeding his pet rabbits. So he was looking for alternative options. But to me, it's just super crazy how people are having to step outside of their comfort zones and eat different foods that they normally don't eat because they have to stay within their budget because of inflation. And it also shows that people of all ages are being affected, and people from different parts of New York City are being affected as well. People are really going through it, trying to keep up with inflation, but majority of people simply just cannot keep up with inflation. But one would think, okay, what is the solution to this? There has to be a way where my money can beat inflation. And you're right. But the answer isn't by getting another job. The answer is by starting to work with us and going into business for yourself. And here you can create something where your money works for you instead of you having to chase your money, and you can build something where your money is beating inflation. I don't know about you, but reading those stories made me uncomfortable, and I'm not even the person who's going through those situations. It's uncomfortable to have to change your diet because you no longer can afford what you usually eat. So why not build something where your money can beat inflation, right? Moving into the next topic that I want to share is how Visa is cracking down on the extra fees from bodegas and small businesses. We don't feel great that consumers get surcharged. So the world's largest payment network is making changes to how it deals with merchants who want to charge customers extra when paying with a credit card. In recent months, Visa Inc. lowered the maximum amount retailers can charge consumers using the firm's cards. The company has also started sending in-person auditors to ensure stores are complying with its rules when levying such charges. Visa's moves comes as a growing number of small businesses say they're feeling pinched by the fees that they pay to banks to accept electronic payments. They've increasingly turned to card surcharges as a way to cover those costs, which are also known as interchange fees. We're just making sure that when consumers do get surcharged, it's something that's fair and equitable. Visa Chief Executive Officer Ryan McInerney said on a conference call this week, "We don't feel great that consumers are getting surcharged, but of course, in certain jurisdictions of the US and around the world, merchants have the ability to do that." It's become a familiar sight at small businesses across the country, signs at checkout noting that if a consumer pays with a credit card, there will be an additional fee. Or at restaurants, waiter will deliver the bill and there will be one price for paying in cash and another for using a card. About 23% of small businesses said they charge an extra fee to consumers using credit cards, according to a survey last year by payments consultancy Strawhecker Group and Free Speech. It was a 2017 US Supreme Court ruling that paved the way for more widespread use of surcharges. The court ordered closer scrutiny of a New York law that barred merchants from imposing surcharges on credit card purchases, saying the measure might violate retailers' free speech right. Today, all but 2 states allow merchants to impose surcharges on customers at checkout, though retailers still face a bevy of rules and restrictions on the practice imposed by Visa and rival MasterCard Inc., as well as myriad state and federal laws. In New York, a growing number of bodegas and restaurants have turned to surcharges to counter the cost of accepting credit cards, while businesses are allowed to offer a discount if consumers pay with cash. They aren't allowed to advertise one price and then add a surcharge at checkout if a customer wants to pay with their card. There are signs that consumers are becoming frustrated with businesses' widely varying surcharge policies. And so far this year, the New York State Division of Consumer Protection has fielded 172 complaints tied to credit card surcharges, almost as many as the 196 it received all of last year. And in recent months, Visa began sending in-person auditors to ensure that merchants were applying surcharges properly, according to a client notice from payment processor WorldPay, seen by Bloomberg News. And at the start of the year, the network could also begin fining merchants if it found to be a non-compliant, according to the notice. While the first violation results in only a warning letter, the second and third violations carry fines of $5,000 and $25,000 respectively. Then in April, the payments giant limited the amount merchants can surcharge to 3%, down from 4%. San Francisco-based Visa has long required merchants to give their payment processor 30 days notice before starting to surcharge consumers, and businesses aren't allowed to impose a fee that's more than the cost of accepting the card. And interchange fees. At the center of the debate are interchange fees. While Visa and MasterCard set the rates for those fees, it's the banks that issue the cards that keep most of the fees. Even if they amount to just pennies per purchase, those costs have been rising in recent years as more consumers use credit cards, which typically carry steeper interchange fees than debit cards. In all, US merchants shelled out a record of 160.7 billion on these so-called swipe fees last year, which was up 16.7% from 2021. And this is according to the Nielsen Report industry publication. It's not just mom and pop shops increasingly leaning on surcharges. A growing number of businesses that have in the past been paid by check or through direct bank transfer. Think of consultants, general contractors, or lawn care providers are using surcharges to counter the cost of accepting credit cards for the first time. CardX, a processor that helps merchants impose surcharging fees in a way that complies with state laws and Visa and MasterCard rules, saw payment volume jump 78% in 2022 from the previous year. A lot of merchants won't even take cards unless they have an option to surcharge. When done consistent with best practices, surcharging is actually a way for a lot of merchants to start taking cards for the first time. So moving forward, the last topic that I want to share with you guys is how the average Manhattan rent just hit a new record of $5,588 a month. So as I'm sharing this information with you guys, I'm going to be touching some key points, how despite a loss in population during the pandemic, average rents in Manhattan are now up 30% compared to 2019. And also the average monthly rent in July was $5,588, up 9% over the last year, which is a new record. Median rent at $4,400 per month also hit a new record, along with the price per square foot. And this is according to a report from Miller Samuel. And it was the fourth time in 5 months that Manhattan rent hit a new record. So rents in Manhattan, like I mentioned, hit a new high in July as higher interest rates and low supply continued to drive up prices. The average monthly rent in July was $5,588, which is up 9% over last year, marking a new record. Median rent at $4,400 per month also hit a new record, along with the price per square foot of $84.74. And it was the fourth time in 5 months that Manhattan rents hit a new record. Despite a loss in population during the pandemic, average rents in Manhattan are now up 30% compared to 2019. Jonathan Miller, who's the CEO of Miller Samuel, the appraisal and research firm, said August rents could mark a new record because it is typically the peak rental month as families look to move before the start of the school year. We could see another month of records. Manhattan's soaring rents have continued to defy predictions of analysts and economists. The borough's population dropped by 400,000 between June of 2020, according to the US Census data. And while experts say that the population has increased since last year, they say it is still likely below 2019. What's more is that offices in Manhattan remain less than half occupied due to remote work. According to Castle Systems, New York offices were only 48% occupied at the end of July. And yet, despite the population loss and the rise of remote work, Manhattan rents continue to soar. And brokers say that the lack of apartments for sale due to high interest rates have forced many would-be buyers to rent. And young workers also have flocked to the borough since the pandemic. It was also said that while the number of apartment listings are below the historical average, inventory of apartments for rent actually rose by 11% in July. And at the same time, the number of new leases signed declined by 6% compared to last year. The combination of rising inventory and failing leases suggests that Manhattan renters may have finally reached their financial limit. It looks like rents are probably close to the tipping point, and we're seeing transactions slip because of affordability. The increase in rents in July was across the board, from small studio apartments to smalling 3 bedrooms. Yet the larger, more expensive apartments have seen the largest increase in prices since the pandemic. While studio prices have seen rent prices up by 19%, average rental prices for 3 bedroom units are up over 36%. And brokers actually say that one reason for the dearth of rentals is the growth in Airbnb units. Recent rent regulations have also taken tens of thousands of units off the market, brokers say. Landlords say the laws, which limited rent increases on rent stabilized units, made it unprofitable to renovate dilapidated apartments. And as a result, many are now sitting empty and unrentable. Brokers even add that even with rent hikes of 30 to 40% last year, many renters choose to stay, which also limited supply. The vacancy rate is still low, making it hard for tenants to secure an apartment. Many tenants renewed their current leases and are staying put. And I believe this trend will continue at least for the next couple of months. So those were the topics that I had ready to share with you guys for today's segment. So I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope that this segment was helpful. And of course, for anyone who is interested in learning how they can beat inflation, like I always say, never hesitate to reach out to me or to somebody on my team. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Mya Henry, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next segment of News You Can Use.